Today's topic is on vitamin D. Had a question from someone that wanted to know, isn't 600 international units of vitamin D enough? I was told that that's all I need. The answer is absolutely not. So let's just talk about the million reasons why that's not enough. First, let's talk about how you would get vitamin D. Now, the sun's exposure to your skin will convert cholesterol to a pre-vitamin D, which is then converted to the active form of vitamin D through your kidneys. Okay, so it has to jump through a lot of hoops to eventually be able to work in your body. But let's just start at the top. The season, okay? Obviously in the winter, you're not going to get much vitamin D. In the summer, you may get enough vitamin D, but it's really depending on your latitude, where you live in relationship to the sun. So if you happen to be living in the northern hemisphere, you might have a big problem in getting enough vitamin D. And then you have the topic of exposure to your skin. And this is just another big variable. Do you have your shorts on? Do you have a sleeveless shirt? Are you wearing a hat or not? Are you wearing suntan lotion? All these things dramatically inhibit vitamin D from going in your body. Then you have your skin color. The darker your skin, the more pigment you have in your skin, the more exposure to sun you're going to need to make vitamin D. So if your skin is darker, you may need 3 to 5 times more exposure to your skin. Then you have the age of the skin. So if you're older, you're going to need much more exposure to skin to get your vitamin D because the texture of the skin is not allowing this transformation to take place. Then you have the fat layer on your skin. The more obese you are, the less absorption you're going to get as well. So that can add another 2 to 3 times more exposure to the sun to have this conversion to take place. And so you can see it can get really crazy because if you have darker skin and you live in the northern latitude in the middle of winter and you're older and you're obese, you're not going to get any vitamin D. And then the next question is, well, maybe you can get it from your food, right? Well, it's almost impossible to get it from your food simply because vitamin D is not in a lot of foods and it's not in high amounts, even in the foods that are high in vitamin D. It is in fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and definitely cod liver oil, but typically most people do not eat the liver of codfish. And then what if you're in the situation where you just don't like fish? That's another huge barrier. Farm-raised fish apparently has 4 times less vitamin D than wild-caught fish. Chicken and pork that is raised indoors has 3 times less the vitamin D. And anything low-fat, that includes cheese that's made from low-fat milk, has about 2 times less vitamin D. And then we get into the type of food. Is it GMO? Glyphosate, the herbicide in GMO foods, has a huge influence on your ability to get vitamin D. And also, if you're consuming foods low in omega-3 fatty acids and high in omega-6 fatty acids, which is probably the majority of the population, that right there is going to also lower vitamin D. All right, and then we get to the topic of the absorption of vitamin D. If you have inflammation in your gut, if you have inflammation anywhere in your body, if you have an autoimmune disease, if you have an infection going on, all of that is going to greatly reduce your absorption of vitamin D. If you had a gastric bypass, that will reduce your absorption of vitamin D. If you have insulin resistance or diabetes, you're not going to absorb vitamin D that well. If you have metabolic syndrome, you're not going to absorb vitamin D. If you have any lung problems like COPD or anything related to the lung, the demand for vitamin D goes way, way up. The cofactors, the things that help the absorption of vitamin D, like magnesium, zinc, B6. If you're deficient in any of those nutrients, it's going to be hard to get enough vitamin D. All right, and then we get into the topic of bile from your gallbladder. The absorption of vitamin D requires you have enough bile. So if you have a problem with the gallbladder, if you don't have a gallbladder, if you have a problem with your liver, which makes bile, all contribute to a major deficiency in vitamin D. Not to mention the kidney, since the kidney is even more important for the conversion into the active form of vitamin D than the liver. So if there's any kidney problems, let's say, for example, you're a diabetic, big problem in the conversion into the active form of vitamin D. There's also a topic of the vitamin D receptor, genetic defect out there. It's called a polymorphism for your vitamin D receptor, which actually is not that uncommon. If you have this kind of mutated defect in your vitamin D receptor, you may have a very difficult time absorbing vitamin D. If you have viruses in your body, one strategy for viruses is to go after the receptor for vitamin D. So apparently they know if they shut down your vitamin D, your immune system shuts down and they can then overcome your immune system. And lastly, there are certain medications that can also decrease the absorption of vitamin D, especially statins, because statins block cholesterol. And vitamin D comes from cholesterol. So the less cholesterol you have, the less vitamin D you're going to be able to make. So other than those few factors, I don't think there's any other ones. So I think you're good to go on that. But I'm being very sarcastic. I think the average person, and this is my own personal opinion, needs about 10,000 IUs of vitamin D based on all this data just to maintain your vitamin D levels. Now, if you have a question on toxicity, you should watch my other videos, which I included down below. Hey, before you leave, I just wanted to give you a little quick history on some of the books that I wrote. This was one of the first books. It's called Dr. Berg Body Shapes. It was my attempt at writing about body types. What was very interesting about this book is I actually did all the images myself. Don't ask me why. They look actually not quite as professional as some of the images that I have in the new book. But anyway, this is my first attempt right here called Dr. Berg's Body Shape Diets. And then I wrote a book more extensive called The 7 Principles of Fat Burning. I don't even have a copy anymore, actually, because it's outdated. The next book, I put about 1,000 hours into this one right here called The New Body Type Guide. Major updates on the body types. I put a lot of energy into this. It has professional images, graphics, all sorts of things. Now, the problem with this book is it doesn't really describe what this is really about. Body types are only a small portion of what's in this book. And that's why I changed the name to the Healthy Keto Plan, okay? If you happen to have this book, you don't really need this book because there's only very, very minor updates. But if you don't have this, you need to get this one right here. This book goes into every single detail that you would ever want to know about. It goes into the 7 principles of fat burning. It goes into hormones, the body types, the basic keto plan. It goes into intermittent fasting. I talk about the 10 fat burning triggers and blockers and fat burning strategies with a lot of details in every single chapter. I go into body issues that interfere with losing weight. There's very few people that just have a weight problem. They have a lot of body issues, whether it's sleeping problems, stress problems, inflammation, menopause. I cover that extensively in this book. Then I talk about how to get rid of stress, and I show you a technique. Then I get into exercising. And then I have a lot of really good recipes in this book as well. So this is a good reference guide. On my website, if you get this book, you get this one free. It's called Healthy Keto and Intermittent Fasting. This is the shortcut, quick guide to this book. And the reason I created this book is to have you, within 45 minutes, learn how to do keto, okay, in intermittent fasting, exactly what you need to do. Then you can fill in the blanks with this book right here. So right now I'm doing a special. If you get this book, you get this one totally free, or you can go to Amazon and get these individually. So I just want to clarify the difference between this book and this updated one right here. If you don't have this, you need to get this right here. That way you can get the exact correct information to do it healthily.